All right, let's get to some comments made by Rockets general manager Rafael Stone. Stone is standing behind the trade he made, which sent James Harden to Brooklyn. The Rockets have been criticized for mostly acquiring draft picks in that deal, but Stone feels like he got a good haul. Let's take a listen.
I would for sure 100% do that deal again. Again, you guys don't have the advantages of knowing everything that I know, but there's literally no part of me regrets doing that deal. I have not second guessed it for a moment. One of your colleagues texted me like the day after the trade, and they said that they would evaluate me in 2027, and I told them that was too early. They should do it in 2030.
I hope my performance gets evaluated in 2030. I get like 9 years on that. So Perk, what is your reaction to Rafael Stone's comments?
I mean, it's just BS, to be honest with you. I mean, sitting up here watching and say he has zero regrets, like you could have had Caris LeVert. You could have had Ben Simmons. And I get it. This is your first time as being the leader of an organization, not the assistant, but you actually get to call the shots. And you better pray and hope that those first-round picks turn out to be something extraordinary, because you gave up a guy who could possibly win the MVP right now this season, and you gave up for hopes on relying on some young talent that's coming in. That's not going to cut it. I live in Houston, Texas, and right now the Houston fan base and the word around town is that they're not happy. The Rockets organization don't know what they're doing, and it's okay to make mistakes. You live and you learn, but don't go and just stand by because you're stuck in your ways or you're being stubborn. It's okay to say, hey, I messed up. I made a mistake. If I could change the hands of time, it's some things that I would have done differently. It's okay.
In a vacuum, I sort of understand what he's saying, but the problem is that he's laying out plans, and the plans have gone back and forth. So he says, don't evaluate me until 2030. I mean, Sam Hinkie somewhere smiled about that one. He was like, I should have said that. But the real issue is he said he wants to do a quick rebuild. Well, the problem with doing a quick rebuild is, why didn't you trade for Ben Simmons then?
Right.
Because if you trade for John Wall and Ben Simmons, that's a rebuild, baby. But instead you trade for Victor Oladipo, and then you move off of him. So it doesn't look like a quick rebuild. So on one day he says it's a quick rebuild, and then another breath he says, evaluate me in 2030. And again, either one of those are fine positions to take. It makes it look like you can't stick to a plan. And so that's the problem. And and from what Perk is saying, yeah, it's been a rough go of it. It's been a go of it as you can have as a first-year general manager. You've never had experience in the job before. Here, go make arguably the most important trade in franchise history and hit it into a grand slam and do it immediately. It's just a huge ask to make, and I understand why he's struggling with it, because it is really hard. I just wish he would, say this is our plan and stick with it instead of going back and forth.
Brian, should they have stuck with Caris LeVert? Because the Ben Simmons, I guess, look, I would have taken Ben Simmons. I think Ben Simmons is an unbelievable player. I think Ben Simmons, gets way too much grief because of the shooting, but he's incredible really at everything else, and I think the other stuff will come along. But should he have made one of those deals in your estimation?
Well, this goes into him saying there's information that he has that we don't. Of course there is. Was the ownership, Tillman Fertitta, willing to do a trade with Daryl Morey? And maybe the answer to that was no. And so maybe while Ben Simmons was on the table, maybe he actually wasn't on the table. Maybe one of the reasons why they traded off Caris LeVert and Jared Allen was because ownership knew they were going to be in a rebuild and wasn't interested in committing to their contracts. And, trading off of Oladipo for expiring contracts, is going to remove pressure to re-sign him. So maybe part of the information was they had to lower payroll and take a step back. And that's something that he probably can't say, but that could be a big factor.
Yeah, but Brian, I can't buy that either, because here's the fact. They offered Oladipo a contract extension. They offered him an extension for 2 years to.
That was sort of a perfunctory offer.
I mean, they still offered though, right? I mean, if he would have signed it, then what? So it goes back to your point that you said earlier. Is you can't say it's one way and straddle the fence, and then in the next breath you come out on the interview and say evaluate you in 2030. No one is buying it, especially not the three guys that are sitting up here talking basketball today. Like, you can't sit up here and tell us that the sky is green and the grass is blue and think we're going to believe it. It's just not going to happen. I'm sorry. I'm not buying it. It is what it is. You made a mistake. Just live by it. It's okay. It's okay.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to admit that in public, though, Perk. It is tough for sure.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.